Congratulations on the purchase of your AUSRV XL13. In this video tuition, I'll be showing you how to set up the kitchen, electrical systems, and the gas boiler for the hot water system. We'll start with getting the kitchen out. Kitchen's stored in this cabinet, and there's two securing measures to keep that kitchen in place while you're traveling. There's a pad bolt either side. If you pull the pad bolt back and turn it 90 degrees so the blue cap on the handle's pointing straight out, it'll rest on a small lip and keep that pad bolt back out of the way. So release both of them, and when you pull the kitchen out, use this top handle that's connected to the chassis of the kitchen. Once you've fully extended it, there are some drop-down legs underneath the kitchen. They're secured by a spring-loaded pad bolt, which you push the button on the front of that, and that'll drop the legs down. Undo our screws, and then retighten the wing nuts, and the kitchen is supported. Now we need to retrieve the hoses from underneath the kitchen. So the two hoses you need to remove from the kitchen are the drain hose from the sink. There's a hole directly underneath the sink waste. Poke that out, run it into a bucket or a jerry can, or if you're on a holiday park site, run a sullage hose into the waste area there. The other one is our hose for the gas kitchen. It's a bayonet fitting, and the female bayonet is tucked in just underneath here. We need to remove the black cap and plug our gas in. With the bayonet, it's simply push it in, turn it to the right, and it's now connected. So now we can run our stove. Here we have a connection for the LED light. That plugs into these small plugs just on the side here. So when that's in, we've got light for cooking with our kitchen. Now we just need to set up the top half. To connect up the water, there'll be two hoses inside your kitchen, a blue and a red hose. Of course, red for hot water, blue for cold water, and they need to connect from these quick connect fittings to these ones. They're just a tail quick connect fitting. So we pop them in and connect to the corresponding fitting below. All connected, now we can set up the top half. Our dish rack, simply put it up, fold the trays down, and our windbreak for our stove. These wing panels you lift, turn them out, and either side of the cooktop, there's a hole for these dowels to fit in to hold that in place. And of course, our LED light. Essentially, that's our kitchen set up. For hot water, we just need to activate the Truma hot water system. Before turning on your Truma hot water system, you need to remove the flue cover. To do that, put your thumbs in the center here and push in and pull down on the top of the cover, and that'll release it. Now, it's always important to, when you store your caravan, to put this cover in place and while you're traveling, because you don't want wasps or anything nesting in there, getting bugs in, and you also want to keep the dust out. Once you've removed the cover to the flue system for the Truma hot water system, to switch it on, you do so at this switch here. To select 60 degrees, you push the top half of the rocker switch. To switch it off, return it to the center. To select 70 degrees centigrade, flick the switch down. Make sure you return it to the off position before you put the flue cover back on, ready to travel. Packing up your kitchen is simply the reverse of setting it up. Make sure your tap's down out of the way, close your rack, and tack up the cooktop heat shield. Make sure you put these wing panels in behind their clip, and remember to return the foam packers onto the burners underneath the grill plates. Tuck our light out of the way. Now we can disconnect our hoses. You might want to release the water pressure before you disconnect these, just to make sure you don't cover yourself in water. Make sure you drain all the water out of the hoses, including the sink hose, before you pack up. You don't want water sitting around inside the unit while it's stored, because of course that can evaporate, cause condensation and create problems with mold. So be sure to get rid of all the water, dry your sink out, because you don't want water sitting around. We'll return our dust caps into position. A tip for you is when you're connecting or disconnecting the gas, don't have the gas bottles on. And before you disconnect, relieve the gas pressure through the stove. It'll make it a lot easier to operate this bayonet fitting if there's no gas pressure behind it. To do it, turn it to the left, remove it, and put your dust cover back in place. Now, we can store the hose back up under the kitchen and store our sullage hose back up underneath as well. And don't forget our electrical connection, that you can just push the wire back into the rubber grommet, and that'll store neatly there. Now we just need to fold up the legs and we can pack the kitchen away. With the legs, undo the wing nuts, retract the legs and retighten the wing nuts. Make sure you put that up nice and even. Put it up into place and then push the spring-loaded pad bolt into position, and that'll hold them up. Now, before we put the kitchen away, we double check that our pad bolts are back out of the way. If they're not, they can strike the edge of the caravan. You don't want that, you'll damage the pad bolts. So they're both in position out of the way. Slide it in, return our pad bolts back into that spot, fold our handle down, and we can close it up. Before you hit the road, you need to ensure that your Truma hot water cover is back in place over the flue. Turn your gas off, turn the hot water system off, and return the cover. Place it on the bottom first, push the top in, and it's now secure. A very important note about your AUSRV Caravan is whenever it's occupied, whenever you're using it, you need to have the cover removed from the bottom of the door. This vent must be open if you're at all inside the caravan. So take off the cover and only return it when you're traveling. The majority of the electrical controls are just inside the door. To the right, you've got switches that operate the awning, the step, and the Enerdrive system, plus the lights. To my left is the main control panel. On your electrical panel just inside the door, there are a range of gauges. These are your water tank levels, the front tank, rear tank, and your grey water tank. Of course, above is the stereo, and you have your USB and 12-volt outlets. This row here is your circuit breakers. So if you lose power to a circuit, say the pump, sockets, fridge, whatever, you push them to reset them. Below are your isolation switches for each circuit. And just to the right here, we have our battery level meter, our battery voltage, and just below that, the blue is how many amps the system is using at the time. It won't show you amps going in, it'll show you what amps your electrical system is taking from the battery. The electrical system is housed under the bed base in the back of the trailer here. For starters, you've got your 200 amp Enerdrive Lithium battery, you have your 240 volt charger, your DC to DC charger, your inverter, and you have a series of resettable fuses. Across the bottom are the mega fuses. They're the high amperage fuses. There's a 200 for the inverter. Beside that, the DC loads, which is the general 12 volt load on the battery. Then there's the DC charger and the AC charger, which is a 50 amp. And just to the side here are a couple of resettable breakers which have a little pin on the side of them for the Anderson plug input and other inputs into the system. Here we have the flat battery reset. This is a very important feature that you need to understand why we need to reset that and at what time we need to press it. The importance of understanding how to reset the lithium battery is that the battery has a built-in low voltage disconnect. So when the battery level gets to a certain point, the disconnect disconnects all power, as in all power being supplied by the battery, to protect the battery from being completely flattened. Now, why we have the low voltage disconnect set at a certain position is if you overuse the battery with your lights, the air conditioner, etc., and it gets to that point where it disconnects, what is left in that battery is designed to cater to the trailer's breakaway system, which activates if the trailer disconnects from the tow vehicle while you're towing. So it's important to understand if the battery cuts out from your power use, before you hook up your trailer and tow it home, you need to reset it so it will supply power to the breakaway system in the event something goes wrong. Don't reset it, then use the balance for your lights, etc., because what will happen is when you tow your trailer, you won't have enough battery power to meet the requirements of the breakaway system. Important safety note, so if it hits the low voltage disconnect, you need to recharge the battery through the solar or through the 240 volt or through your vehicle and add to that power. Again, you'll have to reset it for it to charge, but again, don't reset it and then just use the power without charging it to supply the other features of the van. Located just down on the floor here is your 240 volt RCD safety switch. So ensure if you lose 240 volt power, this is where you come to, and that is the off position, so when it is tripped, and up is the on position to restore power. And that, folks, is how you operate the kitchen, electrical systems and hot water system in your AUSRV XL13. Be sure to get across to our website and download a copy of the owner manual and check out our other tuitional videos on our YouTube channel.